Okay, we ready to start? Daniel?
Yeah, I guess. So if people have questions, then we're ready to start. If no one has
Cool.
questions, it's going to be
Okay, so let me start with a bit of an introduction. In the meantime, if people have questions they've thought of, they can send them to me in the chat if they like, and we can start answering soon. Maybe just by way of introduction, I want to share a story. One of my favorite stories about Pesach. Story I tell every year. I've told this a few times at Purim Suda as well, but it's a tremendous story. So it's told of Rav Levi Yitzchak Miberditchev that Rav Levi Yitzchak used to go. He used to enjoy seeing how the simple people would do things. How the simple people in Am Yisrael would have their seder. So he would he'd go out, and the story's told one year he was on his way back from shul, and he stopped. He was listening. He was listening into how somebody was doing their seder. And he heard this person saying, they started reading the Haggadah. Somebody wasn't a very learned person, but he said, I remember, he overheard this person say, I remember that once I learned the halacha, that when you get to echad, you have to say, you have to draw out the echad. You have to say a very long sound. We know when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, so we elongate that echad. But this person, he didn't remember where he'd heard it. He said, he heard it in his. He remembered this halacha. Sometime, once upon a time, he learned in Cheder. When he gets to Echad, he has to say it. And he says, I'm looking at the Haggadah now in front of us. And I see that the word Echad appears 4 times. So he says, so the guy says to his family, he says, let's all fulfill this halacha now, that when we get this word of Echad, it's a Echad with a long Echad. So they all start reading together. And Levi Yitzchak hears the whole family starts reading the Haggadah, and they get to the part of the 4 sons. It says, Keneged Abba Banim Dibrat Torah. And the whole family together starts reading. They say, Echad Chacham. They're closing their eyes. They're saying such kavanah. Echad Rasha. Echad Tam. Echad Shem. Rav Levi Yitzchak Miberditchev is standing outside, and he hears what's going on, and anybody else would probably laugh. He turns his hands up to heaven. He says, Ribono shel olam. He says, look at what kinderlach you have. Look at these children. He says, you look at the greatest sages in Bnei Brak, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar and Azariah. They were the whole night telling the story of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim until the last of the Talmidim came in the morning and said, Rabbeinu, Higel Zman Kriyat Shema Shel Shacharit. What does it mean, Higel Zman Kriyat Shema? It means the time has come. Only after they spent the whole night telling all the nisim, telling all the miracles and everything that happened, it's come the time to praise Hashem, to recognize, to be Makaba Omachut Shamayim, to say, Echad. It says these people, they've only just started their seder and they're already marachim be'echad. They're already there. They're already at that level. One of the things that we can see from that story, and we can see the idea, the whole point, the purpose of the seder night, the purpose of the whole Haggadah and going through the whole thing, which sometimes gets lost. We'll talk about what questions people have, or we can talk about preparations for Pesach and different things. But many people think about Pesach, think about seder night, 3-day Yom Tov, or all the cleaning and all the, whatever it is that we have to do. The purpose of it all is on the night to tell the story, to tell the miracles, to remember, what happened. Remember Yetziat Mitzrayim, and should bring you to a point of singing Hallel, should bring you to a point of accepting Hashem, to bring you to a point of Emunah. And that's the ultimate purpose of all of it. And it's a once in a year opportunity that we have, which very, very, very much take advantage of it. Not to forget, sometimes it just gets lost in all the other preparations, all the technical things, which are very, very important. But to remember the mahut, to remember on the Seder night itself, there's only 2 mitzvot that we have that are actually d'oraita. We have lots of mitzvot rabbanan, right? We have the 4 cups of wine, we have a seva of leaning, we have maror, we have korech. Just giving you guys, ideas of things you can ask questions about. But there are two mitzvot which we have, which are from the Torah. One of them is eating matzah. And the other one is Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, telling the story going out of Egypt. So the Haggadah is quite important in that sense. Okay. That's
before we begin with questions, just like to mention that we're dedicating the learning tonight for the refuah of Pinchas ben Amalia. So if people have Zechut refuah in mind, otherwise questions.
If no one else will, I'll go.
Go on,
Rav Joel, can you give us a run through, please, of Shabbat in terms of the salient points to note, times, hamotzi? I've been hearing various things about egg matzah, Suda Shlishit, all these things. Would love some clarity.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so if you'd come to Magen Avot on Shabbat after Mincha, you would have heard it all, but good job you didn't. So now I can now I can repeat. Anything? Is there something specific that you want to know, or just?
I think just a few. How to do hamotzi at the Sudot,
Okay.
and also how to do the final parts of Badika / Biur as well.
Okay, great. So great question. So essentially, the question is, Manish Tana Shana Azor. Why is this year different from all other years? And it's actually got nothing to do with COVID. It could go through the fact that Erev Pesach is on Shabbat. And first of all, so before I get into the technicalities of it and all the details, I'll tell you, a lot of people are scared off by this thing. Erev Pesach on Shabbat. First of all, it's not something we need to be scared off by. It's actually gives us a tremendous, tremendous opportunity, because at the end of the day, we'll discuss in a moment exactly how it works, but all the Pesach preparations, all the cleaning, all the b'dika, everything is finished much, much earlier than it normally is. We have the whole day of Shabbat, to prepare for Pesach, to prepare for the Seder. Whether that means, you have an bit of extra time to look at the Haggadah, whether that means you have time to have a rest and everybody can go and have a sleep, whether that means that you can, you don't have to be scrounging around the house looking for something to eat because everybody's going to have food. We'll discuss in a minute. And it's an amazing thing to be able to go from Shabbat into the Seder. Gives us a different kind of experience, much more relaxed and much more uplifting than we could in a normal year. By the way, this hasn't happened for 13 years, but it's going to happen again in 4 years' time. So don't forget everything I'm about to tell you just yet. So it goes like this. Okay, so first of all, just maybe going chronologically. So we know the first thing is B'dikat Chametz, right? We check for Chametz the night before Pesach in ordinary years. This year, well, we do that with a candle or with a torch. We go around the house checking. This year, we can't do that the night before Pesach because that's already Shabbat. So we bring it back to Thursday night. Sorry, I should mention before that actually the Ta'anit of the firstborn, which is normally on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach this year being Shabbat. We don't fast on Shabbat. And since it's being pushed off, we actually don't push it off to Friday either. We push it off to Thursday. So if anybody has a firstborn, right, nowadays nobody really fasts, we'll just go to a Siyum. But if you're going to a Siyum, you should go to the Siyum on Thursday morning, and on Friday morning, because that's when the fast will take place. And we do B'dikat Chametz on Thursday night, right? We do it exactly the same way we would in a normal year, with a bracha. Ordinarily, if somebody's doing B'dikat Chametz early, they're leaving their house within 30 days, and they would have to do B'dikat Chametz, they wouldn't say a bracha. But because in a year when this is the way it falls out, Chazal established that the B'dika would be the Thursday night, so you would say the bracha. At the end of the B'dika, you would still say the bittul. We do bittul chametz, we do it twice. We do it once in nighttime and once again in the morning. The formula which we say at nighttime is only on that chametz which we know about. Only on that chametz which we don't know about, because the chametz that we know about we've still left over and we're going to eat the next day. So we would still say that declaration of bittul. That's on Thursday night. Okay, moving ahead to Friday morning. Now Friday morning. Again, in an ordinary year, you would be Erev Pesach when you would go and you would burn or dispose of your chametz or however it would be by the end of the 5th hour of the day. This year, we've still got the next day when we're going to be able to eat chametz. So technically speaking, we could keep whatever chametz left over for the whole day. But if we have excess chametz, we would burn it, we would destroy it again, still by 11 o'clock in the morning, the same time that we do it every other year, so we don't get confused. That next year, when it's not on a Shabbos, we don't think to ourselves, I remember burning the chametz last year in the afternoon. No, we want to avoid that situation. So that would still be done in the morning. That's pretty much in terms of Friday. In terms of Shabbat, so Shabbat Erev Pesach, which means we are still allowed to eat chametz on Friday night. We're still allowed to eat chametz on Shabbat morning until 10 a.m. 10 a.m. is the last time. After that time, one cannot eat any more chametz. And after 11 o'clock on Shabbat morning, one cannot own any chametz. 11 or 11 thereabouts. I don't remember the exact time, but 10 o'clock is the exact time to stop eating. So that means, so first of all, the recommendation is everybody's kitchen should be fully kashered and everything should be cleaned and, before Shabbat. It would be advisable for the Shabbat meals themselves to use kosher Pesach food, cooked in kosher Pesach pots, and either to use Pesach plates or to use disposables on Shabbat. But the catch comes when we get to Lechem Mishnah, right? Because for the meals of Shabbat, we'll talk about Sudash, we'll talk about in a moment. But for the meals of Shabbat, you still need to have hamotzi, you still need to have 2 loaves. So there are 2 options that we have. First of all, if a person wants to use bread, they can use bread. Obviously, if somebody has a garden or somewhere, separate to where they can eat, where they can make kiddush there, and they can make hamotzi there, just eat the bread and just obviously have 2 small rolls or 2 small pits or something. There's not going to be anything left over. After that, wash out your mouth, shake everything off, and then go and eat the rest of the meal from your Pesach plates. That would be the recommendation. You could do that at night. You could do that in the morning as well. There is another option. If a person doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to have any chametz at all, which is that you could use, and again, I'm talking about now still Friday night and Shabbat morning before 10 o'clock. You could use egg matzahs, right? And why could you use egg matzahs? It goes like this. There's a big machloket as to whether egg matzahs are actually kosher for Pesach or not. The accepted psak of Ashkenazim is that we treat them as though they are not kosher for Pesach. Sfardim, the Shulchan Aruch says they are. Again, even today, there are some Sfardim who are more stringent. The reason for this being, again, very, very briefly, is that what we call the egg matzah, called matzah shira, is not just flour and water, but there are other liquids which are used, whether it's fruit juices, whether it's eggs, whatever it is. And the Gemara basically says that if it's not just, it's not water, but it's fruit juice or eggs or other things, then that would actually not become chametz. However, if there was a drop of water that was added into it as well, then it would become chametz, and it would become chametz quicker than 18 minutes. And therefore, Ashkenazim are going to be stringent for that. Sfardim are not worried about that. So the Ramah writes that when it comes to egg matzahs, ordinarily, our minhag is not to eat them on Pesach, except for somebody who's very old or somebody who is ill, who's not able to eat, extenuating circumstances. Somebody who's not able to eat matzah, and that's their only matzah, if it's softer and that's all that they're able to eat, then they would be allowed to. But normative practice is not. The standard practice is that Erev Pesach, some people have a custom already a month before, but certainly the day before Pesach, we don't eat matzah. But the matzah that we don't eat is that which we could fulfill the mitzvah of Leila Seder. The matzah that we could use to eat matzah on Seder night. Since with egg matzahs anyway, even for those who would eat it, you would not fulfill the mitzvah of matzah on Seder night. Therefore, you could still eat it the day before. So somebody who really, really doesn't want to have any chametz around could use those egg matzahs and eat them on Friday night and on Shabbat morning before 10 o'clock. Again, but you should then not eat them after 10 o'clock. Okay, so far so good. We're going to get into Sudash Shit in a moment, but those are our first 2 meals. I'll just add one point about that. Sorry, Rafi, just before I go back to you, is that many shuls will be davening much earlier on Shabbat HaGadol because you need to get home to make kiddush and eat and be finished making hamotzi by 10 o'clock. So if you're going to start davening at 9:30, that's not quite going to work out. We are going to have davening, I think 7:15 or 7:30, still to be confirmed. Yeah.
So if you normally wouldn't eat egg matzah on Pesach and you consider it to be not kosher Pesach, you can't have it after the hafsakah anyway.
Correct.
Got it.
You could have it, but you could have it beforehand, and it's going to avoid the problem of getting chametz crumbs everywhere. Yeah, get on.
Could you use a regular matzah as your second of lechem mishnah, with no intention to eat it?
Could you use? It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question because you're saying if a regular matzah, which we would not be allowed to eat on Shabbat and Erev Pesach, could you have that there on the table as your lechem mishnah? My feeling is that it's probably certainly not preferable, because our point is that the lechem mishnah is going to be something which could, at least theoretically, be eaten. And if you can't theoretically eat it, would it count? My feeling is that it's not ideal, but I'd have to check for you. Yeah, Daniel.
So if you don't eat egg matzah on Pesach, but let's say that somebody eats it in your house on Pesach, is that the same as if somebody has eaten chametz in your house on Pesach? And how do you then deal with that?
I'm not sure I understood your question. You're saying that somebody has a different minhag?
Yeah, let's say that was the case.
Well, no, again, so just to explain. So egg matzah is not chametz. The question is, again, if it was just flour and egg and there was no water that was added, then everybody would agree that it's kosher for Pesach. The problem is, what happened if during the manufacturing process a bit of water was added? So then we're concerned that we don't know how long it takes to become chametz. Ordinary matzah, just flour and water, we're very, very makbid that it's within 18 minutes because we know up till there we're okay. But if it's got other things as well, we're not sure beyond the 18 minutes. So it's a chashash, it's a concern. Right? And that's what the Ramah writes. The Ramah writes that we are, I guess to treat it as if it could be chametz. I don't think that it actually is chametz, because if that's the case, then we wouldn't allow it for a sick person. So no. I mean, you should still avoid eating it, if that's your custom, but you don't have to treat it as if it's been chametz in the house. So just to finish off Shabbos, because Rafi is very concerned about what he's going to do for Sudash Lishit. Let's carry on with that. Yeah, we have a little bit of a problem. This is where it starts to get very confusing, because Sudash Lishit we need to eat certainly after midday. Also, the normative halachic practice that Sudash Lishit we have to have lechem mishnah, we have to have hamotzi. So on Erev Pesach we can't eat bread because it's past the time when we can eat bread. We can't eat matzah, as we've just explained, because you can't eat matzah the day before Pesach because you have to have the taste. It's going to be fresh for the Seder night. We mentioned before about matzah shira, about egg matzah. For Ashkenazim, can eat it in the morning, but you wouldn't be able to eat it in the afternoon because we have to be concerned that it might be chametz. Again, for Sfaradim, you could still eat the egg matzah in the afternoon until the 10th hour, and that would solve the problem of Sudash Lishit. So what can we do? The answer is there's not really that much you can do. You have to give up on one of two things. I'm just make two assumptions. Sudash Lishit ordinarily has to be in the afternoon and has to be with bread. Well, it's impossible to fulfill those two conditions. So either you could have it in the morning with bread, or you could have it in the afternoon without bread. You can pick one of the two, but you can't have both. In fact, the Zohar goes so far as to say that on the Shabbat of Erev Pesach there is no chiyuv of Sudash Lishit because it just can't be done. So there are some people, in Israel, this is more common, where they're used to davening early on Shabbat morning anyway, and it's much shorter, and the Shabbat meal is much shorter. So you could go home, and if you start early enough, you could wash. You could have sort of a first course with salads and breads and whatever it is. You could then bench, have a small break, and then you could wash again, and that could be your Sudash Lishit. There are some people who do that. Here, again, I'm not sure how practical that is. And I think it probably make more sense, particularly if somebody is not makbid every single Shabbos to wash for Sudash Lishit. Again, you should. But there are opinions that say you could have Sudash with mezonot or with something else. And if that's not your practice every week, I don't see why specifically on Erev Pesach you would go and wash twice in the morning before 10 o'clock. So you could have your meal in the morning. It could be breakfast. It could be a big kiddush. It could be whatever it is. And then a bit later in the afternoon, have your have cholent on Erev Pesach, but have chicken or schnitzel or whatever it is as your meal, as your Sudash Lishit. It wouldn't have a motzi, but that would be okay. If somebody really, really wants to have mezonot, we don't want to have mezonot for Sudash Lishit, so you could do that. How can you do that? So any sort of you can't eat matzah on Erev Pesach, so any sort of cakes or baked goods, whatever that are of matzah meal, that would also be part of the minhag not to eat matzah on Erev Pesach. But anything that's made of matzah meal, which is cooked and not baked, you could have. So kneidlach, for example, the Mishnah Berurah brings that you could have your Sudash Lishit with kneidlach. Obviously, you don't have a problem heating up the soup on Shabbos, but you could have some. You could have some of that. One other very, very, very important point, which I didn't mention, is that we spoke about how the bedikat chametz takes place earlier, but the bitul chametz, the nullification of chametz, which we would normally do on Erev Pesach in the morning, just before the last time we can own chametz. Normally in ordinary years we do that when we burn the chametz, so it's easy not to forget to say it. This year, as I mentioned, we burn the chametz the day before on Friday, but we still have to say the bitul, the nullification on Shabbos morning. So that everybody has to remember that just sometime before 11 o'clock on Shabbat to open up the Haggadah and to say the Kol Chamira, the declaration saying that whatever chametz I may have left in my possession, whether I know about it, whether I don't know about it, is like Hefker and Afra Dara. It's as if it's thing, and there we go. Okay, get on.
When do you say the first Kol Chamir? Do you say that standardly with Badika on Thursday?
That's right. The first one you do when you do the Badika on Thursday night, and the second one you would say not on Friday morning, but on Shabbat morning. Okay, so there's a question that somebody's asked. Sorry, I'll get to you in a minute. Just come through in the chat that if somebody is at a place like a uni or school where students leave chametz around, does that mean the place isn't kosher, the whole building, or this is. So this is a question that comes up actually in Israel this year. There's been a big question because the law until now has been that in hospitals you weren't allowed to bring in chametz, and there was a challenge by the High Court and also discussions about religious freedoms and coercion or not. And this year for the first time, they're not allowed to enforce that people can't bring chametz into the hospitals, into public places. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but just a little bit of background. So what are the problems that that we could face by seeing chametz, by being in a place where there is chametz or something like that? So obviously we can't eat chametz on Pesach. We also can't get any benefit from chametz on Pesach. We also can't own chametz on Pesach. So people get a bit confused. There are two different prohibitions. The Torah tells us what's called bal yira'eh and bal yematzeh, which means no chametz can be seen in your possession and no chametz can be found in your possession. Big discussion in the Gemara, what is the difference between those two? I'm not going to get into it now, but it's just different ways of expressing that it's chametz which is yours. But there is another exception to this, that if I have chametz in my house, even if it's not mine, but it belongs to another Jew, but it's in my house, then it's considered as if it's in my possession. But it has to be chametz which is yours, that would pose a problem. Somebody once asked me, I remember, he was very upset because he drove, he went to the Kotel on Pesach, or he drove past somewhere and there was a baker, there were, some vendors outside, selling bread, and he thought he had transgressed the prohibition of not seeing chametz on Pesach. There's no problem of seeing, but if I walk past, a non-kosher bakery and I've got bread in there and I see it through the window, I haven't transgressed anything. It's not seeing it means it can't be seen in my possession. I can't own it. So if I'm somewhere and other people have chametz in the building, it's not mine. There's nothing that I've done. There's no problem with that. It's fine. Obviously, I can't eat it. Something that people would have to be careful of is if you are in some sort of communal area where you are eating, even if you're eating your own food, but you're sitting on a table. Sometimes it happens. You can go out, or you're on a tiyul somewhere and there's kind of like a park bench, or tables where different people can be eating. So if somebody else is sitting at the same table and is eating chametz, then you would not be able to sit at that table and eat with them at the same time. Normally we say about milk and meat or about non-kosher, if you have a separate placemat or you have some sort of something, reminding you that you're not going to pick from each other's plates. Again, social norms have changed a bit in the last few hundred years, but you have something reminding you, that would be fine. You could eat, that's by shari string, by meat and milk, etc. When it comes to chametz, we're more stringent. And the reason for that is that even if there's a crumb that gets into your food on Pesach itself, you would not be allowed to eat that. So I hope that answers the question. If there's anything further, please write in the chat. And now we'll go over to Gideon Rudolph.
Thanks, Rav. I got a two-part question. First, going back to the egg matzah, if Ashkenazim who rule that you can't have it on Pesach, would there be a problem with it eating it on your Pesach plates or on Shabbat lunch, or would that have the same status like kidneyot? You can eat on plates, but you can't just eat, or you can drip or something like that. My second part of the question is, of a basic Google I just did, there are 3 different opinions on the latest time to eat chametz, and they're separated by like 40 minutes, like quite a big difference. Do you know which time is like, who holds by what, which time is accurate? Because it's quite important to know exact time. We have to make sure we had hamotzi by. Yeah.
Okay. So good question. So in terms of your first one, again, with the egg matzahs, like I said, egg matzahs are not chametz, but again, we're concerned that they might be. So we want to be extra stringent. So if it's we're talking about the Shabbat beforehand, and everything's cold, and it's going to be washed off anyway. So that would be okay. That wouldn't be an issue. In terms of the second question, this really relates to how we view halachic zmanim. And it's not just in terms of Pesach, but in terms of when's the latest time we can say Kriyat Shema, when's the latest time we can say we can daven, and there are a couple of different ways of calculating. It depends when do we calculate the day beginning at really at daybreak, the first sort of rays of light, so it's begin from sunrise, and again, when does the day end? So there are a few different opinions, a few different ways of calculating that. A bit too complex to go into all of it now, but the United Synagogue time is, like I said, is 10 o'clock, and people can be. Sorry, that's in London. Before I get accused of being too London centric, and in London it's 10 o'clock. In Manchester or Birmingham or anywhere else, consult your local calendars to see exactly what that time is. Yeah. Okay. So this is Vivi. I think Gideon, you had your hand up first before. No.
I can't remember my point.
Okay. So people should just unmute themselves and ask.
Sorry, I think Sam had a question too. If you own chametz in a place that's inaccessible to you, do you just include it in the list of things that you sell, or what's the situation with that?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So if you own chametz, so let's say when you say it's inaccessible, what do you mean?
Like chametz that's in Israel, for example,
okay.
That is there, but you can't clean it out, or yeah.
Okay, yeah, good. So if you have chametz, it's somewhere, in an office or it's overseas, or if it's overseas, it's going to bring up another couple of interesting questions, maybe we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, you don't mean it's like behind the fridge that you can't move or something like that. Right. So you have chametz, which is somewhere where you can't get to. So again, from the Torah, in order not to own chametz, all you really have to do is to nullify it, right? The Gemara says very clearly there will be enough, a person makes that declaration. You have to, of course, really mean it. You have to have in mind that, this chametz is no longer chametz. It's like dust of the earth. It's like nothing anymore. And that, from the Torah, on the Torah level, would be enough for a person not to own any chametz. The problem is, and Chazal weren't so happy with us relying on that by itself, for a couple of reasons. One is, you may have said whatever you said, but if you would then encounter that food, even if you don't own the chametz, if you would eat it on Pesach, so you'd be transgressing. And you might forget, you might come down early in the morning and late at night, you might be hungry, you might open up your cupboards, which are filled with dust because you've made it all dust. But actually, as chametz, you pick up some, piece of toast or cake or whatever it is, and you eat it. You didn't own it, but then you ate it. So that was one reason why. The other reason why is, like I said, when you make this declaration, you have to really mean it. A person has a whole, liquor cabinet, full of whiskey, whiskey's chametz, and it's all very expensive. The person says, the whiskey, it's nothing, it's, it's dust. And then somebody would come and take all those bottles, pour them down the drain, and say, what are you doing? I said, well, but it's dust. So then that they didn't actually mean it. So Chazal said, therefore, we're not we're not going to rely on that by in and of itself. You would have to find your chametz, you have to get rid of it as well. And the way that we prove it is, Chazal also added on what's called chametz shavar leva pesach, which means if I only did bitul, but I didn't go around and get rid of the chametz, if I then find it after Pesach, I'm still not allowed to eat it. So in terms of chametz bar, you have an area which is inaccessible. So first of all, we might have thought you could just do bitul and that would be enough. Problem is, if you just did bitul, it already would be enough. But then after Pesach, you would not be allowed to benefit from that chametz anymore. You would actually have to throw it away and have to. So a better solution would be, as you've suggested, is to sell it, and you would include it in the form for mechirat chametz. The problem is, in order for the sale to be valid, there has to be at least a theoretical possibility of the non-Jews bought my chametz being able to access it. Right? This is not just some sort of a trick. This is not some sort of magic spell. When we sell our chametz to non-Jew before Pesach, we're really selling it, and they're really buying it. And if anybody doesn't understand that, there's a problem. Every year there's a story of somewhere. I remember a few years ago in Israel, Rami Levi, some non-Jew who bought the chametz, walked in and started, pulling things off the shelves. And he said, what are you doing? He said, it's mine. I bought it. And if you are slightly shocked about the fact that he's taking it, so then you are revealing retroactively that actually you didn't take the sale seriously, and then it wasn't sold. That would be a problem. So that's So part of that is that there has to be at least theoretical access. So if it's in another country, if it's in somewhere, you should at least, it should be noted on the form. There should be, a way that if, the buyer wants to access his chametz, he's able to. I remember, a few years ago, it was when we were living in Israel, and I think we came to England for Pesach. So when we sold our chametz, again, we didn't have, bread or anything like that, but we had whiskey. I can't remember exactly. When we sold it, we wrote on the form. We told the person, this is our phone number, and the key for the house has been left with the neighbors at such and such an address. So theoretically, the person wants to come, he has access. It doesn't mean that the non-Jew who buys the chametz has got 24/7 unfettered access into your house. He can come whenever he wants. We don't have to go to that extreme. He still needs to ask, still needs permission to come in and get it, and he can't come in unannounced at 3 o'clock in the morning into your house. But there should be at least a theoretical possibility. Okay, Sam.
How does it work selling jointly owned food? Because you own it yourself, but it's also not all yours to sell.
So the people, the various people that own it or have a part in it, should either sell together, or they should appoint. They can either give up their share in it, or they should give it over to one person, make him the owner of that food in order to be able to sell. Yeah.
On the selling point, how is it a problem this year that they can't walk into your house by nature of it being illegal?
Yeah, so this came up last year as well. And the truth is that this year it's actually a lot simpler. There are ways. But again, so a person can't walk into your house, but they could have access. If they were to knock onto the door and could you bring it to them? Maybe not, or you could walk out and they could. I think there are ways in which you could make that transfer of the chametz. Yeah, Daniel.
Do you mind running through the amounts of everything we should have on Seder night, which shittot to follow, etc.?
You mean matzah and
matzah, maror, wine,
okay,
etc.
Sure. So the easiest thing to do is to get Rav Joel, and you open it, and it's actually got life-size pictures of exactly how much matzah you need to eat and how much maror you need to eat. And there's a picture of a lettuce leaf, and you can actually take your piece of lettuce and measure it on your book. So that's the easiest thing to do. But so let me say by way of introduction that people, again, this relates to what I said right at the very beginning. Eating on Seder night is not meant to be unpleasant. It's not meant to be unnatural. I've been at Sedarim, where people were sitting there, and you get to amount, so each person has to have one box of matzahs for the matzah, and then another 2 boxes for the korach, and then another 3 for the that is not the way that it's meant to be. We're meant to enjoy the taste of the matzah, and it's actually you can follow your needs. It's a fairly reasonable amount in a reasonable space of time, and we don't have to feel like we're completely stuffing out of it. In fact, we shouldn't. So the first thing to do is, that's why a person should be careful how much they eat on Erev Pesach. Don't eat too much on the day before, so that you're going to be full before you've even started. But basically, what it boils down to is that we have there are a few machlakot in terms of how we calculate the different shiurim of what we have to eat. For matzah, for the mitzvah of matzah, we have to eat a kazayit. For the mitzvah of maror as well, we have to eat a kazayit. A kazayit literally means an olive's bulk. How exactly we calculate an olive's bulk? There are, this could be a whole share in and of itself, but there are basically 2 different shiurim amongst the Achronim. Is what's called the Shur of Rav Chaim Na'en, what's called the Shur of the Chazon Ish, and the Shurim of the Chazon Ish are a little bit bigger. The the general rule of thumb that the Mishnah Berurah gives when it comes to Kiddush, when it comes to different things, is that whenever we have a mitzvah d'oraita, we go by the larger share, the larger quantity. Whenever it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, we can go by the smaller quantity. So let's start off first of all just in terms of 4 cups of wine. In terms of 4 cups of wine, again, by Seder night it's a little bit different. In that what we have to drink normally we go by a revit or a rov revit, and Seder night we have to drink the majority of the cup, and so the recommendation is not to have too big a cup for your 4 cups. The way to remember the different amounts of the smaller amount and the bigger amount of what is considered a revi'it, which is the amount that normally that we have to drink for Kiddush, etc., is that the gematria of the word kos, which means cup, is 86. The gematria of the word kos hagun, which means nice cup, is 130. And so the smaller amount is 86 mils, and the greater one is 130 mils. So long as if a person has the cup for which you have your 4 cups has to hold the amount of a revi'it, but what you have to drink in practice has to be the majority of the cup, so it has to be more than half. So if you have a very, very big cup, you're going to have to drink a lot more wine or grape juice than you would if you have a smaller cup. But again, the cup can't be too small. But if it holds 86 mils, that should be enough. In terms of matzah, so we have actually 3 times that we have to eat matzah on Seder. Now we have to eat at the beginning. We wash, and then we have motzi matzah. After that, we then have maror, which again, maror is d'Rabbanan. Korech, which is motzi matzah is d'oraita. Korech, which is the sandwich, is d'Rabbanan. And then at the end we have tzafun, where we eat from the afikoman. Again, it doesn't actually have to be from the piece of matzah that was hidden away, but it has to be another piece of shema matzah at the end of the meal. It's actually machloked in the Rishonim as to when we fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah on Seder night. Do we fulfill it with the first bit of matzah that we eat, or do we fulfill it later on by the last bit of matzah that we eat? But nonetheless, according to most, we fulfill it at the beginning. So we need to eat a kazait. We need to eat a kazait for matzah at the beginning. We need to eat a kazait with the korech, and we need to eat a kazait with the afikoman. Now, for all sorts of various reasons, the Mishnah Berurah, the poskim write that when it comes to matzah at the beginning, that it's good to have 2 kazaitot, and when it comes to matzah at the end of the afikoman, it's also good to have 2 kazaitot. The reason for this is that the matzah at the beginning, really why? Because we have 3 matzahs on the Seder plate. Sorry, somebody's correcting me. That kos hagun is 150. That's correct. I was missing 20 cc over there. But when we have the 3 matzahs on the Seder plate, the machlok rishonim as to which of those matzahs that we are saying the bracha of motzi lechem min haaretz on, and which of those matzot we are taking of al chinat matzah. So the person who's leading the Seder should actually have to take from the top 2 matzah, and has to take from both of them. And that's why there is a stringency to have 2 kazait, not just 1 kazait, because you're having from both. But somebody who's not leading the Seder, who doesn't have their own 3 matzot in front of them, but is just getting matzot from everybody else, strictly speaking, it wouldn't be necessary to have 2 kazait, you could do with 1. Also, the afikoman at the end. Different reasons as to why we have the afikoman. According to some of the Rishonim, it's because it's a zecher of the Korban Pesach. According to some, it's a zecher of the Korban Chagiga. It represents different things, and that's why there's a stringency as well to have 2 kazaitot. But essentially, so where we're left with all of this is as follows: there are different approaches as to how we calculate the share, how we calculate the kazait. And there are different places where we have a chumrah, very important to understand. It's a chumrah to eat 2 kazaitot and not to eat 1. So what everyone suggests is as follows, and I think the logic is very, very sound. He says, wherever we have a chumrah to eat more than 1 kazait, if you want to, you can fulfill that chumrah by eating more than 1 kazait of the smaller amount. There's actually 3 or 4 different ways to do it, if that makes sense. According to one opinion, just for argument's sake, according to one opinion, a kazait is going to be half of a machine matzah. According to another one, it's going to be a third. According to another one, it's going to be it's going to be a full. So if I eat 2/3 of a machine matzah, so according to the opinion that holds that it's that a kazait is only a third, I've had 2 kazaitot. When the opinion that says that it's more, I haven't. But okay, so that's the way to fulfill both those chumot. So essentially, what do you recommend? And I would go with this. Is that for the matzah at the beginning, it's good to eat 2/3 approximately of a machine matzah. The truth is that once you start eating and you just eat normally, again, you don't have to shove the whole thing into your mouth, in one go until you feel sick. No, but you just sit and eat normally. That would fulfill and that would be okay. When it comes to korech, probably 1/3. Third or a half of a machine matzah is enough. And when it comes to afikoman, again, if a person is able to have about a half or even more, then that's good. And if not, half or about a third of a machine matzah is okay. You can see exactly the sizes and whatever. How if you're using hand matzahs, so you can just work out more or less the same volume. Yeah, Rafi. Yeah, the next question.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm taking cake orders for my business for after Pesach, first of all, am I allowed to take them on? Am I allowed to confirm them? And am I allowed to take payment for them during Pesach? Is there I would assume no, it's not an issue, but I don't know.
Sorry, again, people want to order.
Yeah, let's say you wanted a cake for May, and can I take your booking? Can I confirm your order? And then if you're like, oh, can I pay? Can you pay?
During Pesach.
During Pesach.
I'm going to need to get back to you on that one. Again, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. Again, intuitively, it kind of sounds like, it feels like, there might be something wrong with it. But if we think about it, if somebody's asking you to do something later on, you're not currently, using any chametz. There's no, there's no actual transaction that's taken place of any chametz. There's no chametz that you want to exist on Pesach itself. Top of my head, I don't think it would be a problem. But I'm going to need to confirm that to you. What comes up, and is related, there's a sukkah what's called rotzeh b'kiyomo, which is, if there is chametz which exists on Pesach, even if I don't own it, but I want it to exist in the world, I have an interest that it should be there and shouldn't be destroyed or shouldn't be something like that, then there might be a problem. So just discussed if somebody orders something on the internet, through chametz, and then the delivery is going to take place then, but it's only going to arrive at me after Pesach. There's a little bit complicated. But the question you're asking, Tammy, is not where there's any chametz that's going to. That's even if you were to order something over the internet, there's no specific chametz that you can point to. That may be acceptable as well. So again, I'm going to come back with confirmation, but our feeling is that it should be allowed.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, and then you also brought up buying online in advance, and then I thought, okay, that's actually quite a good point as well. If I need to order icing and stuff like that, I just can't do that on Pesach.
So that's a little bit more complicated if you're making the order on Pesach itself, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's another question that comes through here in the chat. Before Pesach, if people don't want to sell chametz, is it okay to trap it in your cupboard, or is it a mitzvah to actually sell it? I'm not sure I've understood the other question, but if the question is saying, to put the chametz in your cupboard and keep it in your house over Pesach, the answer is no. That would not be okay. Like I said before, theoretically, one could do bittul from the Torah, But Rabbanan said, if you've done bittul, that's not enough. We need to make sure that you're not. Again, bittul is going to work if there's going to be chametz in your house that I don't know about. No, let's say there's half a biscuit that's hiding behind the couch, that I've never seen, and suddenly on Pesach, it comes up. Then it's not mine. I don't own it. Once I find it, I would then have to throw it away or destroy whatever it is. But if we're talking about bona fide chametz, which somebody's just keeping and out of sight and out of mind, but it's mine and I own it, that would be a problem. So it would need to be either destroyed or sold beforehand. Yes.
So if a cake company can take orders and accept payment on Pesach, can I pre-order a cake on Pesach and pay for it?
So it's not just it's we're setting up some business. Can you pre-order the cake on Pesach for after Pesach? Again, so that would be the other side of the coin. I'm going to have to look into these and get back to you all.
Would that be the same as the Amazon scenario? Like that you're ordering something on Amazon to arrive after Pesach?
So the difference is going to be at what point is this specific chametz there available in the world, and at what point is going to be delivered. And if I order something on Amazon to arrive, let's say the day after Pesach, then it's very, very important to me that although it's not yet mine, it's very important to me that it exists on Pesach so that I can acquire it as soon as I'm able to. And then we could potentially get into problems of Rotzeh B'Kiyamo, as I mentioned before. If I'm talking about ordering something to make a reservation for 6 months' time, or 2 months' time, or a month's time, where I know that the flour is only actually going to be ground after Pesach, but I'm just kind of close the deal now, that would be seemingly there would be a lot more room to be lenient on that. But again, I'm going to need to come back with a final answer. Okay, I think we're done. Very good. Lots of questions. Please, if people have more questions, where to find me. You can, we have the WhatsApp group, or if people want to message me privately, that's fine. And wishing everybody a restful rest of preparations, if that's possible, and Chag Sameach.